A total prize pool of over $160,000 awaits in the Collegiate Hearthstone National Championship. Are you prepared to team up, show your skills, and take home the trophy as Hearthstone champions? This spring, students from colleges across the U.S. and Canada will try to win their share of $160,000 in scholarship prizing in the Tespa Collegiate Series Hearthstone Tournament.
Welcome to week number 6 of the Hearthstone Collegiate National Championships. It is day number 2. My name is Cora Giorgio, and I'm joined on the desk by Nathan That's Admirable Zamora.
Yeah.
We had fantastic matches yesterday. There was no karate, but you never know what might happen today. We've got 3 more coming your way, but first, if you do not know what this tournament is about, let's go ahead and take a look at the format. Teams are split into one of 4 regional Swiss groups. They've been playing 1 match per week. This is the 6th week. Then teams with 5 or more wins advance to a Swiss playoff. The top 16 teams from the playoffs advance to a championship bracket. And this is all leading up to the top 2 teams from each region advancing to the live national championship.
That's right. And even though these teams are working together and collaborating to play the same game, they are just playing Conquest. Each week they're going to submit 4 unique classes. Then after they see what their opponents have brought to the table, they're going to choose one of their own classes, and they're going to omit it from play in that series. It is a self-ban. Then from there, they'll play a best-of-5 match, where the first team to win a game with each of their decks is going to take the set.
It's the Conquest that we know. We're used to it by now. And then you add in that self-ban and the team dynamic, and you get something pretty crazy where people put Hungry Crabs and Shaman and Sacrificial Pact in their Warlocks. It is truly a unique experience.
And win those games.
They win those games.
And win those games.
It is unprecedented. And let's take a look at what we have in store for us today. Yesterday, of course, we had 3 incredibly close matches. Duke 3-2 over Georgia State. Texas 3-2 over NC State. And then Cal 3-2 over their fellow team from Cal. But today, we're going to the East and North regions. It's going to be Penn State versus Sherbrooke, then Carleton taking on Michigan, and finally Miami, Ohio up against Notre Dame. Some big names today.
Yeah, I think that's what's really cool to talk about from yesterday, too, is that even though all the matches were 3-2, Game 5 was usually distinctly in one player's favor. The only Game 5 I think that was close from the get-go was in our final match, where it was Dragon Priest versus Dragon Priest. And the other ones, you saw the lineup building and the self-ban play an actual big role in that, where the 5th game, when the last decks are there, one team had a clear advantage before the game started. And it was really tough for it to boil down to anything other than those key decks at that point.
Well,
really
we have a lot on the line today as well. We saw mostly 5-0 teams yesterday, so teams who are already through to the playoffs. Today, it's going to be mostly 4-1. So here we can see the standings. Our first match of the day is going to be Penn State versus Sherbrooke. Penn State currently 25th in the standings for the East region. They are 4-1 match results and 14-7 for game results, which means if they win their game today against Sherbrooke, then they will advance to the next stage of this tournament. Sherbrooke is 36th in the standings. They're also 4-1. So if they win, they move on.
Yeah, not that I have a hard line on it, but typically to get to the playoff stage, it's about top 64 in teams. It's going to differ depending on how many teams are actually in your region, but there's hundreds of schools that are competing or hundreds of teams in schools that are competing in this event. So to get in that top portion, it's pretty tough. And this one just showing like how close it really is. Like both of them are 4-1. You're looking at an 11 place difference. Mm-hmm. Between these guys. So there's a lot on the line in these coming weeks for teams, and it's the do or die time. If you don't win this match, your next week is definitely going to be stressful.
It is going to certainly come down to who can take it today, and then finally can they step up to the plate next week. And of course, we're going to be taking questions once again this week. If you have anything you want to ask us, tweet at Team Tespa. Go on Facebook /Team Tespa. If your question is chosen to be featured on the stream, then you do receive the Dollar on Flame card back. We don't have our beautiful picture from yesterday, but
I actually do have
we
it.
do have it? Oh my word.
Hang on, somewhere in here.
It's hiding. There it is.
It's here.
That's a nice one.
Boom.
Yeah, this is an artist's rendering of the Dollar on Flame card back. It's beautiful.
Not a good artist, but
an artist.
I'll take it.
Technically.
The artist who actually made it's a lot better than I am.
Yeah,
shader.
I think he probably made some money off of that.
It's like his job or something.
Yeah, maybe he's like an artist for real. But our first match of the day, Pennsylvania State University taking on University of Sherbrooke. These guys are Hearthstone artists.
Yeah, and honestly, look at the lineups here. We're starting to see at the 4-1 bracket still teams play classes that represent patches. and represent small-time Buccaneer. Even though the change from 2 health to 1 health certainly lowered the resilience of that card, we've noticed that a lot of times it still would have looked pretty good. Warriors have typically cut it at this point, and they're running Argent Horse Rider in the slot for Pirate Warriors, but Druid, because of the fact that that card's less resilient, starting to crop up in a lot of these lineups as well.
In a lot of cases, 3 damage is good enough for a 1-drop. And taking a closer look at Pennsylvania State University, Immortal Froz and Undecided.
Yeah, not to be confused with Frostbitten.
I mean, that's absolutely not his name.
No, it's Frostbitten.
There's a Z.
Imagine if you just replaced the letter S with Z in everything.
Tespa.
Pennsylvania.
That's admirable.
Just a lot funnier to me.
And University of Sherbrooke is going to be their opponent. Dogan, Burritos, and Dark Gaiman. Geomatics applied to the environment, electronic engineering, and physical education.
Yeah, University of Sherbrooke with Burritos.
And can confirm, geomatics is geography plus informatics. And then you apply it to the environment.
I don't know how you apply it to the environment, but if you can, and it's beneficial in some way, he's going to know how.
Satellite imagery, drones, and aerial photography.
Drones are scary.
Drones are cool.
They do produce like the great shots. Like I was watching like a nature documentary recently. Shots are great because of those drones. Holy moly.
It's good stuff.
I love
Futures drones.
We need drones in Hearthstone to just fly around and like capture the really close ups of the players.
That's how we get the real good shots, not from Skype cams.
I want
but
to
from
see sweat
drones.
and pores.
Yes.
When they're under the lights.
Because that's what we want to see. Sweaty Hearthstone players. Penn State has banned away their mage, and Sherbrooke has banned out their rogue.
Yeah, the banning out of the rogue makes a lot of sense here. If you look at Penn State's lineup, that's very potentially aggressive, and that's something that I think they need to get away from, is having that there. But at the same token, there's Druid. And Druid has historically struggled with aggression. It's been the best way to beat this deck. Druid likes to invest into its mana pool early on, draw lots of cards, and put together these gigantic turns. Aggressive decks don't allow them to do that. They keep them honest, make sure that they check threats every step of the way, and that really stunts the amount of time it takes for Druid to get online there.
Yeah, it can certainly throw them off their game plan, which is what you want to do when you bring a lineup. You want to make your opponent's life as difficult as possible, so we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, their whole life is difficult as possible. We're talking
absolutely
from
everything.
Finances to
from the
personal,
time they wake up in the morning.
Social relationships.
I'm pretty sure that's called stalking, and it's not okay.
Totem Golem has just ruined my ability to make friends.
Really? It's the Totem Golem that did that?
Well, I'm usually the one playing it.
No. Okay, that'll... Well, no, I found that more people want to be my friend in Hearthstone when I coin Totem Golem. It's amazing. My friendship rate goes way up.
So we're starting out with Pirate Warrior versus Druid. And Sherbrooke here, I mean, look at their mulligan. They're keeping Wrath. They're keeping Swipe. Those are cards that Druid does not want to necessarily keep in their opening hand. But it just depends on the matchup. In an aggressive matchup like this, these cards kind of... they act like ramp spells, where if you can just keep minions from dealing damage to you turn after turn after turn, eventually your big cards start to make an impact. Now, the problem with that is that Penn State, their minions are just so efficient. It's a Bloodsail Cultist is going to be upgrading weapons. Bloodsail Raider, that's a must pay attention to style of card in a lot of situations. Frothing Berserker, only Swipe is going to handle that on a one-for-one basis. Everything else requires Sherbrooke to do something else alongside it, and that's what's really giving them that edge. They follow it with just Arcanite Reaper and hit him in the face twice.
Yeah, Sherbrooke needs to check every threat that Penn State puts on the board, essentially. If Penn State is able to get on the ground running and keep it up at all, they're going to run away with this game. So Sherbrooke needs to play very carefully. Eventually, they will roll into Jade Behemoth. We're likely to see Agent of War in the list, so they will have some ability to block damage, but in the early game, they need to focus on removal, which throws them off of their ramp game plan. It gives the entire, aggression over to Penn State.
Finley is like a really important card in all of these style of matchups too, where Penn State, they're trying to fight against the ability to be controlled. Steady Shot and Life Tap give them so much more reach when it rolls in those later stages. It's such an important card in a matchup like Druid or Warlock or Priest. Not quite as important in mirror matches or just mirror-styled matches, but That card is just so good.
Well, in the mirror, it can be important, but for different reasons. If you're in an aggressive mirror, suddenly Steady Shot and Life Tap aren't as good, but Lesser Heal, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean,
in certain cases, Reinforce can still... It's always going to be good, but it makes you play Finley in a different way.
This is an interesting spot for Penn State here, too. I don't really imagine this weapon swing's actually coming in on this turn. I mean, they have Upgrade in hand. They got Heroic Strike. It looks like just straight to the face, and then I guess an attack to the face too. This certainly plays into their draw potential a lot better. Say they just hit Arcanite Reaper or another Fiery War Axe, they're going to want to have used the charges.
Yeah, a lot of the time the Warriors can become very bogged down with weapons, and then you have 20 damage, but you have it over 6 turns with weapon swings, and you just don't have that much time. So getting in some damage now, they know they've got at least 2 more turns of weapon damage with the upgrade, and by then they're hoping they draw something else. Yeah, it's very likely.
I really want to point out how important the Jade Idol was on turn 1 here for Sherbrooke as well. Their hand is just basically nothing but removal. So when they get to accelerate the Jade process here, I mean, imagine they didn't have Jade Idol. That would just be a 1/1. Now instead they got 3 power on board. The Jades start to mean something. This is the making of the kind of hand that Sherbrooke can actually win with. Oftentimes they just struggle to the minion pressure, but it's starting to get rolling. They're going straight into swipe. It's looking good for them.
They got to keep up somehow. And this is one of the ways that they can do it. Jade Idol is generally looked at as powerful because in control matchups, it can essentially make you impervious to fatigue if you play it correctly. In aggressive matchups, if you can Jade Idol on turn 1 for a 1-cost golem, it's not the best turn 1 card, but then it makes the rest of your turns going forward so much stronger.
Yeah, it kind of acts like, I think, what's the 2-cost Grime Street Informant, I think it is. It really acts like a hand buff mechanic almost, where since all of the Druid's cards are Jades in terms of threats, it buffs all the future ones. So you're investing into something that basically is non-existent on board to get the benefit later on.
Yeah, exactly. Druid got Jades and hand buffs. That's no fair.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really imagine not swiping or wrathing this turn. I mean, Wrath hero power is about the same as swipe, and swipe lines up better against like Frothing Berserker, for instance. The problem with that is Core Chron Elite is a very real possibility from Penn State. They didn't play a card they kept in their hand. They did play a 1-drop. What is that card if you're in Sherbrooke's spot? So, Core Chron Elite definitely in the forefront of my mind right now. We see the South Sea deckhand, but that's why they're choosing to swipe here rather than Wrath, is that they still have an answer to Frothing Berserker.
Yeah, the mulch may come in very handy for Sherbrooke here. And up until this point, they've done a great job of staving off the aggression. They've managed to ramp their own golems a little bit, and they haven't hit any of their other large minions other than Aya. So really just getting that early removal has sort of given them the time that they need to be able to keep up with Penn State.
Yeah, this is the stage of the game where they definitely can suffer the most, though. If Penn State puts together any reasonable amount of damage here, that's going to be lights out. And the Dread Corsair standing in the way of Shapeshift, that's a big problem. I mean, Druid needs to be able to chew through 1-health minions very quickly or the damage piles up. They're down a swipe. Looks like they got a Wrath this turn. They may even have to Living Roots just to keep taking care of the board. They got to get something on board, and they have to start racing Penn State.
It's possible that they put down the Living Roots this turn. The 1/1 saplings just challenge the Pirate Warrior generally pretty well. And it also allows you to maybe get some more favorable trades with, if you pick up the second Wrath, then suddenly you can kill a Berserker.
I'm curious if they just killed the Finley. Or, I'm sorry, killed the South Sea deckhand and then hero power the Finley. They just need to get stuff
just
off
use
the board.
It for 2 damage.
That's kind of what I'm looking at. And that's probably almost certainly going to be the play now. Turn 6 Aya, turn 7 Ancient War. And Penn State now is actually in a lot of trouble.
Like we said, Druid has access to those taunts. They have access to Feral Rage. They can, eventually block a lot of damage. It's just very hard for them to get through the first 3 or 4 turns. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, that is when the Druid loses the game.
Is that a Core Chron Elite? Oh
that is.
My, that's a huge draw. So that honestly makes the Aya so bad in this situation. And this is why Sherbrooke saved onto that Wrath, is if they saw Core Chron Elite, they were in a lot of trouble. Now they had to use the Wrath, rightfully so. I mean, you can't just eat 3 damage and then eat the rest from the 1-health minions that live. But that's going to put them very low. That draw was huge.
If Sherbrooke can remove the Core Chronolate, get to turn 7 with the Ancient of War, and have a safe life total, they could still put themselves in a favorable position. They do have Feral Rage. It's going to require some. They're going to have to put together some good draws. But it's possible.
Penn State thinking about going with Heroic Strike and Hero Power here. And the idea is they want to get in as much damage as possible over 2 turns. That would let them get in 2 steady shots instead of 1. Question is that worth it? I agree.
I don't know. Steady shot's pretty powerful.
Giddy up.
If we're playing Face Hunter, we're steady shotting every turn. That's
another big draw.
Fantastic.
And this is where Druid kind of thrives and lives and dies by, is once they get past the early stage, they have so few low-cost cards that they start drawing heavy hitters every step of the way. It looks like Druid always just draws an incredibly strong card, but frankly, it's just what the entire deck is.
It's very flexible.
That's why it's bad versus aggro usually.
Yeah.
You just have a lot of big stuff.
Yeah, I've actually really started questioning 2 Ancient of Wars in this deck. The deck is heavy as is. It's very hard to get through the early stages of the game. Then you roll into, 2 7-mana 5/10 taunts. Yeah, in a lot of cases it's very good. In other cases, you just draw them within the first 4 turns and you're stuck. This is not a deck that can thrive if you have dead cards in hand. You really need to make the most of every one of your resources.
Look how much damage this is going into this 3/6. Oh. Can you imagine if they didn't draw that Jade Behemoth? Didn't draw like Druid of the Claw, Feral Rage. Like there was just so many.
Well, they'd be at 2. And that would be a problem because then they'd be dead.
Yeah. Instead, it looks like they have some chance here. Now, the next thing they're going to have to check, though, is life total from Penn State. They have to stay out of the Mortal Strike for 6 range as long as they can, but at the same time, they have to end the game as quickly as possible. So now's the next dance. It's very clear that Ancient of War is stopping the ground aggression. How fast can they push on their own and not die to Mortal Strike? And when Penn State does nothing here, Sherbrooke can almost rest assured that Mortal Strike is the card in hand.
There's really not much more that could be. Maybe Leroy. Maybe. But,
I think they would have Leroyed the Jade Behemoth.
Yeah, would have saved him 2 damage.
Yeah. And here, the hero powers are also important as well. Like right now, you're looking at 2 steady shots and a Mortal Strike off lethal. 1 hero power, that extends it to 3 steady shots.
Golems are a girl's best friend.
And by no means should they kill this N'Zoth's first mate.
Oh, no. That 1 armor could be very, very valuable.
You know what's actually kind of tricky here is they may not have the liberty of playing around Mortal Strike because of that N'Zoth's first mate. Penn State, if they're just a little bit off damage, they can run their weapon into a minion and put themselves
below 12.
Yeah, below that 13 mark to 12 or less. That's a play that I used to miss all the time when I was playing Pirate Warrior early on. Was I would always forget that I can just purposefully take damage from a weapon and set myself to 12 to get that extra damage. It's kind of crazy.
It's a play that happens to me a lot. My opponents do it quite a bit, and then I'm left feeling very stupid.
I like how that plays out. I love when cards will change the way that you approach a game.
It's just very counterintuitive.
Uh-oh.
Because you...
I'm going to hope that's not a disconnect. They might have just intentionally not attacked here to think about that exact situation of activating Mortal Strike.
That's possible.
You know, if Penn State was at 17 here, you're looking at 10, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Attacking to the Ancient
10,
of War,
14,
you go...
15 damage. And there's no difference between 18 and 17 aside from Living Roots. That's it. So they're looking for Feral Rage or Swipe. Those are the Jin draws right now. They're going to debate not attacking again, I think. If they
can build enough pressure up on board that they can kill Penn State in 1 turn without ever putting them below 13, that's the way to do it.
That's what they're all talking about right now, too. You saw the intuition was just to nourish instantly and look for a Feral Rage to swipe. They're pointing out, hey, if you just play Jade Spirit and Hero Power, he's got to have 8 damage. How does he set himself to 12 in order to activate Mortal Strike? Well, he doesn't. And then we have the damage to kill in 1 turn. That's exactly what they're debating right now. That's clever.
Penn State can attack the Ancient of War, go to 13, but if Sherbrooke deliberately does not attack, They cannot activate Mortal
I
Strike.
personally would use the Nourish because you have the immediate outs, and then also Innervate will allow you to do the same thing.
True.
So there's a chance to close this turn with...
It's likely 4 draws.
Yeah. Look at this, though. They're going to take it slow. I like this play, too.
It puts Penn State in check.
This might just be better, honestly. I'm just curious. It's kind of weird that you saw back-to-back no-attack turns, but that honestly is going to almost 100% ensure they win. Penn State would have needed double Mortal Strike to win this turn. Mortal Strike Bash. That would have worked as well, but typically it's one or the other.
Yeah, not likely that you see Bash and Mortal Strike in the same list. Penn State knows.
Clever play.
Sherbrooke navigated this one incredibly well.
Look how excited they are, too. That's how tough it is to actually beat an aggressive deck with Druid. And that was the key deck for them, was Druid. It was the weakest one across the board from their opponents. Now they got that win under their belt. I think they're a huge favorite at this point.
They've certainly got some positive matchups coming up in the rest of this series. And now Penn State, they have a long road ahead of them. The Pirate Warrior is still very strong, despite the recent balance changes, but there's definitely a reason that we've been seeing less and less of these weapon classes. They have all suffered significantly, and who knows, maybe a small-time Buccaneer would have given the Pirate Warrior that extra few points of damage it needed against the Druid. In this case, it just didn't have it.
Yeah, old small-time Buccaneer definitely would have. Against Druid, in this case, you probably would just Hero Power.
Yeah,
the Jade Idol would have threatened it. There's so many. It's just a much weaker card as a result. The big one is just that Sherbrooke had that turn 1 Jade Idol. That was such a big difference in the game. Having the 2/2 that didn't die to the Finley. Having the extra 3/3 that was able to trade into the Kor'kron Elite. Wrath, Swipe, Jade Idol. That was beautiful.
Made all the difference. And they purposefully kept the Swipe and the Wrath and the Mulligan, correct?
Rightfully so.
And then they just, they drew into the Jade Idol, but it worked out incredibly well for them. It was some very smart, some smart play from Sherbrooke.
And that's what they got to do. Get the early action. Make sure they pace it right. Notice they had paced too quickly. They could have died to Mortal Strike. They could have died. But they didn't.
It's true.
It's true. They extended the game by an additional turn to play around that card. That's so crazy. Like, you never see that. That's a very rare circumstance.
It really makes you think. And especially since these are college students. These aren't professional Hearthstone players. Those certainly are, that's the advanced thinking that you would see from players who have a lot of experience, who have played this matchup over and over again and know exactly how to navigate against Mortal Strike in your opponent's hand and them being able to attack into your own taunt minion and proc it for themselves, which would have given Penn State the damage that they needed to be able to win that game. Instead, Sherbrooke kept them right at 13, made it unable for Penn State to be able to activate the Mortal Strike, and they took game number 1. So now Penn State is going to be back on the Pirate Warrior, and Sherbrooke with the deck that we've become very familiar with. It's a mid-range Shaman variant. It's been very popular the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's certainly crept up a lot, and when Shaman loses that Pirate package, players have certainly tended to go this direction, even when it was available. A lot of players were tending to go this direction. I personally have not been the biggest fan of it.
No, you don't say.
Because I like Flame Wreath Faceless. I think that card's good. But there's certainly a lot going on in this matchup, and Penn State is still rolling with small-time Buccaneer, but they also have Dread Corsair. I'm sorry, Bloodsail Corsair in the lineup as well.
They do also have Dread Corsair.
Yeah, they do also have Dread Corsair. But this is a really important one for the Shaman to really get on the ground quickly. Lightning Storm is sort of their catch-all to if they lose the ground game, but that's when Penn State gets another opportunity to redevelop. It comes down to that minion dance of how much are you willing to commit in order to press the issue. 2 Arcanite Reapers right now.
Well, unfortunately, Penn State doesn't have a lot that they can commit at this point. They certainly don't want to put down the Corsair before they see a weapon from their opponent. But you need to keep up that steady threat of damage, otherwise you're just going to fall behind.
That's a sad-looking Buccaneer right now.
Yes, it certainly is. That is, it's an Elven Archer with no battle cry.
The Arcanite Reapers tend to be fairly poor in this matchup just due to the natural taunts. Sherbrooke's hero power, 25% of the time is going to give them a Stoneclaw totem. Oftentimes, in addition to that, they'll have Feral Spirits, which will eat both charges and deal damage. Matches up well versus Thing from Below, but that's only if you have pressure out, or your opponent's so low that clearing the way really matters.
Yeah, Aggro Shaman matches up incredibly well against Pirate Warrior. Now you look at mid-range Jade Shaman, sure, the opener's a little bit slower, but you're still seeing Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem, and now you have Jinyu Water Speaker for a little bit of catch-up in the late game. Mid-range Shaman is pretty strong right now.
That's a good one. That seems to be the reason why why mid-range Shaman's strong is anyways, that card.
I won't be seeing it for much longer. I mean, we'll be seeing it in Wild, but...
Hallelujah.
I don't know. I think Wild's gonna have its heyday this year. I'm excited to see what happens.
I think Wild's already awesome, personally.
It's a lot of fun.
It's gonna be 5 sets different when the rotation happens. But yeah, Totem Golem, very clear play here. They're trying to not give away that their hand is as weak as it is at the moment, and that's what they're deliberating about. If they act too quickly in this spot, maybe Penn State looks at it and goes, "Ooh, their hand's weak. Strike now."
I think Penn State can sort of start to make the read that, there's no Maelstrom Portal in Sherbrooke's hand, but you still want to take the time, make them think you have options. Penn State celebrating with the draw of the N'Zoth's first mate. Any weapon here is a good weapon, as long as it's not Arcanite Reaper.
I'm really curious if they're thinking about trading in this spot because I don't think I'm a big fan of it. I think that with the 2 Arcanite Reapers in their hand, their game plan is pretty spelled out. And I don't know if they're going to get 4 clean attacks off of that. So when they trade here, they certainly strengthen themselves against Lightning Storm, but Sherbrooke could have been at 20. The Totem Golem running over your board is not very efficient at this moment. You are certainly more afraid of Maelstrom Portal and of Lightning Storm than you are of Totem Golem.
Totem Golem can only take out 1 threat at a time. You've got 4 on board.
And eventually it's just going to die to stuff it's running over. This way you lose your 3-1 and you lose 4 damage. Sherbrooke is by no means trying to be the aggressor at this point. They're simply trying to stop the pressure. So when Penn State makes that attack, they're kind of conceding the idea of reckless aggression, getting the job done. That's something Pirate Warrior does best.
Yeah, reckless aggression, getting the job done. In some cases, it's right to be a little bit greedy. Even though you have a favorable trade and your 1 mana can trade into their 2 mana very efficiently, sometimes if you can just get 3 damage, might be enough to close out the game.
Honestly, the trade is fairly greedy as well. Like at this point, they're hoping that the 2-1 and the 1-1s will try to get this job done, and it's sort of a big contrast.
That's a tall order.
It's a big contrast from what you normally think of with a greedy play, which is, conservative, slow, trying to get extra value. Here, they're trying to prevent defensive play measures, and it's very greedy.
Well, Sherbrooke answering back with
whoa,
yet another greedy play. They decide to forego the Coin Lightning Storm. It really would have messed up their following turn. And they think this way maybe they can sequence their hand a little bit stronger, but that Frothing Berserker is nasty.
Yeah, this is one of the problems with Lightning Storm, too, is the overload throwing off the turns. At this point, Penn State's getting a lot of value from these little guys. That's terrifying for Sherbrooke. That's what they need to not happen, is these little guys get a bunch of value.
Sherbrooke does have some comeback mechanics. They've got the Jinyu in hand, but it's really hard to slot that in if your opponent has a board.
They're on Jade Lightning next turn, I think. I think they got to kill the Frothing Berserker.
Absolutely. If you Storm, you're removing 4 off board, but you're
piling it onto the Frothing Berserker.
Yes. You're actually removing nothing from the board in that case.
I like to play, too. Penn State realizing that Flame Tongue is no threat to the board, and if Sherbrooke is going to continue to totem, they're going to win the game. And that Maelstrom Portal, that might be a little late. I mean, they have to kill the Frothing Berserker, no question. The question is, do they feel brave? Do they feel like this Lightning Storm is going to hit for 3? Because then they would have Lightning Storm, Coin, Maelstrom.
I never feel that brave.
I wouldn't either. They would die if they if they messed that up.
Oh, not a chance. Jade Lightning is safer. Gives them the full 6 mana to work with on the following turn if they want it.
It's looking a lot better for Penn State now. Arcanite Reaper, giddy up.
Yeah, well, when your board from turn 1 is still around on turn 5, it's not bad.
Sherbrooke would be at, I don't know, the whole game would have changed if they wouldn't have killed the Totem Golem, so it's hard to say what they'd actually be at. Maelstrom, Coin, Jinyu, it looks like.
It just might give him the time. Penn State does have an additional 15 damage from Arcanite Reapers, though.
Yeah, it's a lot.
This is about the only time you'll get to see Forbidden Ancient, so take it all in. Him and his 1-mana 1/1 glory.
Whoa.
All right, that's pretty good.
Are big. Now, Sherbrooke has answers to the minions. So the minions, all they're doing at this point is simply slowing down Sherbrooke's clock. But their clock is mostly about stabilizing. I mean, they have 2 turns to stabilize. Man, now what?
This is tough. There's a lot of options here.
This is looking like a game where hexing their own minion.
It may come into play.
Yeah, it could be like a real thing.
Either hex your own minion or roll Stoneclaw Totem really consistently. I mean, you need to address the board. That's a given.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what their best draws are at this point. You know, it would be like a Fringe Healing Wave.
Second Jinyu.
Yeah, another Jinyu Water Speaker would be fine. Feral Spirit would be good, but it's going to boil down to the taunts for them, I think. They can't clock Penn State soon enough.
Is Feral Spirit an auto-include in a mid-range Shaman deck?
Not necessarily. I've seen a lot of builds play 1. I've seen a lot of builds play 0. Lately, I feel like I've been seeing 2 more often. But Sherbrooke's got to hurry up, and they're settling on Lightning Storm.
Penn State can find 4 damage off the top. It's going to be Heroic Strike, Mortal Strike.
Korkron, Leroy. A lot of cards.
That's a lot of outs.
A lot of cards that win in the game this turn. It's not one of them. Sherbrooke's got 1 more turn. I think they're going to have to hex their own minion.
You're not gonna find great hex targets in your opponent's deck. Not when you have the board and you have ways to remove from hand. 3 mana for a 0/1 taunt on your side is just going to be better, as stupid as that sounds. Penn State seriously thinking about putting up that Arcanite Reaper this turn.
I think they're considering playing the
Corsair?
Yeah, because they haven't seen a weapon at this point. The extra 1 damage would actually allow them to play around Hex on your own minion. And at the same time, say they have South Sea Captain in the deck. Suddenly they have a way to maybe punch through a Stoneclaw Totem.
That's
because
true.
It's not checked on board. I think there was a lot of merits playing that, honestly. Ooh, they need 1 more turn. They're going to hex their own minion for sure.
Yeah, well, now that they didn't roll Stoneclaw, they certainly will. And if you want to ensure that you roll it next turn, yeah, you need to hex that Ancient.
Yeah. Well, they have the
Jade Chieftain.
Yeah, they have Chieftain next turn, but I mean, 4 is not comfortable. What was that? Fiery War Axe. If they had that,
If they'd played the Corsair,
they would have forced Arcanite Reaper. I'm sorry, they would have forced Flame Tongue to hit in that spot, so they would have rolled 1 less totem. You'd be still staring at the same board, basically, but
there wouldn't be a Searing Totem.
yeah, it would reduce the chance for that Hero Power to hit. Which next totem, if these 3 stay on board, it's guaranteed Stoneclaw.
Mm-hmm. Can you even Hero Power after you have all 4 on board?
No, you're not able to, unless you have Justicar.
Yeah, then you get to pick.
Yeah. Which is basically no different than when my opponents are playing against me anyway. It's like they start with Justicar, so.
I think that's just a glitch in the game. Is this only a 2/2 Golem?
I think it is. And again, this is why the consideration for the clock is so important in this matchup is look how much time Penn State gets. Every single time they draw a card, it's danger for Sherbrooke. They're trying to count up if they have a quicker way to close by rolling the Stoneclaw Totem instead. I don't think it's the case.
I mean, either way, it's going to be 2 health of taunts that your opponent has to go through. If you put the Jade Spirit on board, well, technically it's more stats.
I don't know. Say you play Flame Tongue Totem, you roll a Taunt Totem, you Jade Claws, you attack face. The next turn, you have the Spell Power Totem in play, and you have Jade Lightning. I actually think that's lethal in 2 turns. Oh, the Armor Up. The Armor Up is what offsets that. So they're gonna play that direction. The clock is the same. This gives them a taunt next turn with the Jade Chieftain. If only 1 totem dies, it means they get 2 taunts instead.
Flame Tongue 1 on the Stone Claw, meaning if Penn State has to put a minion into it, then Sherbrooke gets maybe a little bit easier way to trade in the following turn. They are sacrificing 2 damage this turn, however.
That Leroy, that'll do it.
That's Leroy.
Penn State finally draws a second source of damage outside of a weapon swing. 1 apiece.
It was just it was an awkward first couple of turns for Sherbrooke. They picked up that Maelstrom portal 2 turns late, off from when it would have been really valuable for them. And then although Penn State had both Arcanite Reapers very early on, they had enough time that they were able to get the full value out of those weapon swings, which can be tough.
Mid-range decks just tend to struggle to aggressive decks is the nature of it. Their cards cost so much that even once you've stifled your opponent's aggression, a lot of times you're just too low to really recover from that board state. You're forced into playing defensively every single turn rather than just maximizing your damage output. And so that gives the aggressive player all of that time. You have plenty of cards that are strong against the aggressive decks. How strong are they in combinations versus the aggressive decks, though? It was way too clunky that game.
It's the old Hearthstone rock, paper, scissors. The aggro over mid-range, mid-range over control, control over aggro. That type deal comes into play a lot more often
and
than you
without
think
Reno,
it
it
would.
was just aggro over control in that situation. Combo was the killer against aggro. That's honestly one of the reasons why you've seen some of the most successful decks out there against aggressive decks be combo decks at times. Like Freeze Mage, for instance. Just got a lot of stuff to stop aggression, and then 1 turn is all they need.
It's all
their
about
damage
stalling.
output. All their damage output comes in 1 turn. They don't need multiple turns to set up.
Well, Penn State has gotten on the board with their warrior. It took them a couple tries, but they did find the draws that they needed. Now it's going to be Rogue Shaman up against Shaman Warlock.
Yeah, I think that Rogue is definitely going to find a pretty reasonable win here. With Sherbrooke playing mid-range, I think it makes it a lot harder for them to put the pedal to the metal and really test the Rogue to have early removal. Hex is certainly a great way to answer like a Questing or an Edwin all-in, but for the most part, they're going to be looking for like Tomb Pillager into Gadgets and Auctioneer turns.
We've seen some Rogue variety as of late. Dwayna actually finished rank 1 legend, I believe, with a Finja Rogue package. Of course, there's the traditional Miracle Rogue, and there's been a lot of aggressive Rogue in HCT this past season. Now with Small Time Buccaneer being weaker, a lot of times being out of the Rogue package, it's less likely to see that aggressive Rogue, but for a period there, it was very strong.
Yeah, I think it still makes a lot of sense in Rogue, but certainly lost a lot of its runaway with the game potential, where it didn't get killed by hero power and then just dealt 9 damage. Sometimes
thank goodness for that.
You seeded up with a Cold Blood and a Conceal was good enough to get the job done from your 1 mana card into a guaranteed hero power. Definitely a bit too strong. But now that Small Time Buccaneer is out of that runaway with the game potential, we've been seeing it kind of move back away from the aggression and more towards the big swing turns that they have, either drawing tons of cards with Gadgets and Auctioneer, or in Dwayna's case, literally a Finja package in his Murloc deck. Finja is super strong right now, and that's a Bluegill Warrior, which means Finja.
All right, I'm excited to see this deck in action. Certainly worked out well for Dwayna, and obviously ladder is a much different scenario than constructed and competitive in this case. But the self-ban does make this a little bit more like ladder than your average competitive tournament.
Yeah, usually there's an opposing side ban, so you're not controlling as much of what your opponent is doing so much as what you're doing in that instance. So Penn State, haven't seen the rest of their deck. I am curious to see it at this point. And they're smiling, they're fist pumping. I can't wait to see this mulligan. But in general, they're just looking for a major turn to get significant value, whether that's in simply just Tomb Pillager and Azure Drake, because they're not under a lot of pressure, whether it's land a Finja and get the value from his activation when he kills a minion, whether it's Auctioneer and draw a million cards. Sherbrooke's main goal is to try to stop them from being able to have those safe turns. And it relies on them having some sort of pressure or just an incredible amount of defense to stop that. And so Penn State has Swashbuckler, Shadow Step, and SI7 Agent.
Also Lord Draxus.
This is an aggressive build. So the new goal for Sherbrooke is simply stop the assault. And for Penn State, it's just going to be damage, damage, damage.
Well, that Doomsayer is going to help out a lot. Before that draw, Sherbrooke's hand was very clunky. Not a lot of what they wanted to see And that might help usher them into the rest of their cards maybe a little bit easier.
Yeah, I would say typically they're fairly uncomfortable with Hellfire in the hand. But if they knew what matchup they were in, they'd feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, Hellfire going to be pretty reasonable in this. Obviously, you're taking a lot of damage early on, and you're going to take 3 more from Hellfire, but that's going to kill pretty much everything your opponent has to put on board except for the Pillager and the Drake. In this case, Shaku the Collector is likely in Penn State's deck. Hellfire shuts that down right away.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why Argent Horse Rider has been such a welcome addition to a lot of these aggressive decks is in the face of Hellfire, in the face of Volcanic Potion, you just need that little bit of extra damage and to occupy your opponent's resources. The backstab and the shadow step right now are hurting them a lot, though. I'm curious if they're ever going to use that just simply for 2 damage.
I've seen the shadow step be most successful when you do use it in unconventional circumstances. So obviously, you have 2 shadow steps, you have Leroy. The burst potential is incredible. But in a lot of cases, if you get Argent Horse Rider down, the Divine Shield breaks for some reason, you can shadow step, bring it back, play it again, Divine Shield's back. You can get a lot of unexpected damage from that.
Yeah.
This guy's toast.
And in this case, they're going to go with the SI7 agent over the Argent Horse Rider. I totally agree with this, but this is a situation where it looks like they're going to get punished for it. Oh, and that's a great draw, too. Honestly, that might be better than the Hellfire.
Challenges the board just as well. You just saw backstab. If that gets eviscerated, that's 4 damage. It doesn't go to face.
Now that Penn State has seen the Hellfire, oh my. Well, I was going to say, I think Bluegill and Hero Power actually might have been better this turn just to push as much damage as possible. But Shaku is, after you just saw Hellfire, this is the card.
Shaku, I'm still not entirely sold on. We've seen some circumstances where it's been very strong. But in a lot of cases, it's a 3-mana 2/3 that is guaranteed to get you 1 card that a lot of the time doesn't do much.
Yeah. I think the main benefit of the card is it's pretty much a must-kill target for your opponent. If they don't take care of Shaku, that's scary. And so it's not a super powerful attacking minion, but it certainly can buy you a lot of value, and a lot of times just acts as a taunt. Sometimes better because your opponent has to, like quick shot it or weapon it or bash it.
Take some damage.
They just have to do something to get rid of it. You can't just give up value.
Disrupts their turn. Takes damage away from your face or other minions.
I'm curious if we ever maybe see a shadow step on the Shaku here.
I was wondering that too.
Like after the attack, and you want to get Azure Drake down for sure.
Depends on how much you value your Shaku. You're going to have another shadow step in the deck likely.
Depends on what they get from Shaku too. I mean, this card opens up a world of potential.
There's a lot of good cards in Warlock, and there's a lot of bad ones.
Maybe just don't even attack with it right now. I mean, that's not unreasonable either. Say Sherbrooke misses a minion on the following turn. Oh my gosh, they have Murlocs in their deck.
So next Murloc you play costs health instead of mana,
yeah,
I believe. The Sea Devil Stinger.
And it's a 4/2. That's actually pretty good right now.
Yeah, next Murloc you play this turn costs health instead of mana.
That's 8 points of damage from hand with just that plus the Bluegills.
It doesn't have charge.
Oh, you're right. Why was I thinking it had charge? Goodness gracious.
It'd be really good if it had charge.
And they draw Finja. Oh, my word.
You can Sea Devil Stinger.
If they don't draw
Finja.
War Leader, the Finja's getting 2 War Leaders from their deck. And that's +4 to each Bluegill. The damage here is really starting to pile up. Just look at the way that Penn State's laughing about this.
If they don't take that Drake off the board, though, Sherbrooke can just Shadow Flame preemptively get that Finja off without deactivation.
That's a good point.
Penn State may want to wait a turn just to ensure that this Finja is going to get them some value. Oh, they're not going to do it.
I mean, I think this is the right call. Sherbrooke's deck is, by nature of a Reno deck, playing 1 card of each of their copies. Shadow Flame is quite literally the only way that Sherbrooke has in their deck to kill this right now. This is a make them have it situation. And this is...
In a lot of cases, it's the right play.
This is what... Wow, look at this. They're even going to kill it. But now where does Finja find its value? Because the Refreshment Vendor can trade in, and Sherbrooke can simply take their time and figure out where they need to play around this. That could be a benefit for Penn State, though. Opponent's not contesting your board. It's a lot of free damage.
Get more time.
This is a weird game. God, I love Finja.
So many people are so mad at Finja right now.
He grabbed a pen and grabbed some paper. He's cooking up something on that sheet of paper at Penn State. My tip to him is bold it. When I drew the card back yesterday, you couldn't read it, and then I had to scratch over it about 700,000 times so it was legible. I think he's doing that right now.
I'm excited at what this could be. Maybe we've got another artist.
Draws like a lifelike portrait. Like, man, he ripped that up in like 3 seconds.
A beautiful rendition of Sea Devil Stinger. Or, they could be keeping track of like the cards they've played.
With the laughter, it's the context that's getting me about it.
Ha ha ha. So we played one backstab. We played one swashburglar.
No minion from Sherbrooke. That's in the Arch
not a bad
Horse Ride.
thing.
That's so good for them right now. My question is, do you attack with Finja? Do you just keep it stealth and have it be a giant nuisance? Or do you open it up to Siphon Soul?
If you keep it stealth, you're dissuading your opponent from playing anything that it can kill. If you attack with it, you get the 2 immediate damage. That's pretty good. And maybe it draws out hard removal from your opponent.
Yeah, I mean, hard removal is not good versus Penn State's deck. I mean, the Finja's about the top of their curve. Jiraxis, of course, not found in any rogue builds except for at times when Swashbuckler wins a weird contest in a tavern somewhere and takes someone's Jiraxis. I don't know, but that damage definitely means something.
Contest in a tavern somewhere. Is that how Swashbuckler works? I guess I never thought about it.
Just look at him.
Maybe he wins a game of Hearthstone and there's stakes on it.
He's a tavern hero.
It's like some other card games you played when you were young. Like card games on the bus. You got to give up your best card if you lose.
Have you ever actually tried
Stakes
to
were
play?
high.
Have you actually tried to play card games like in a vehicle?
My brother actually retrofitted my bicycle to be a medium for another card game when I was younger. Then he ran over a rock and broke my bike. So don't play Hearthstone on bicycles. Don't play Hearthstone on motorcycles. Save that for other card games.
I would tend to not play any game on a motorcycle personally.
Well, it's been done before in video games and cartoons. It was pretty awesome.
So many possibilities.
Sherbrooke's in a heap of trouble. Just none of these cards do anything right now.
Finja Rogue, man. The Murlocs themselves are just not good.
Well, the horse riders together, it's just like an Argent commander.
Yeah.
That card used to be great.
That's still not bad. That's a high priority pick in Arena. Oh, Sherbrooke.
They're waiting on the Twisting Nether. And
That's
honestly,
not a bad idea.
They might have to. 4, 6, 8, 10, 13, 11 damage for Penn State this turn.
Penn State can attack with the Finja and Shadow Step it. And save that baby for later.
I mean, they have Jiraxis potentially next turn. I think their question is just how they make sure they keep a board around. I mean, when Sherbrooke does this, it's like Twisting Nether is the card on their mind. And they would much rather have a random card than an Azure Drake right now, and rightfully so. All they're trying to do is push damage.
They're gonna do it.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they have a hard read now that Sherbrooke has Twisting Nether in hand, and they really want to bring out that value from Finja. Plus, it's messed with Sherbrooke so much over the last few turns. They've played nothing.
It has done some weird stuff to this game, that's for sure.
If Finja can continue to disrupt after this.
I love that card. Just completely changes the way that Sherbrooke looks at the game.
I don't know that I've seen such a divisive card in a while. There are some people who love Finja, and there are people who despise it.
Yeah, people despise
who want it out of the game immediately.
Yeah, they're
those
just
passionate Twitter users.
They just hate fun. Well, an alternative opens up.
That's a pretty good one.
Is it? What's the card Penn State's been holding for so long from Swashbuckler? You know, what if that's like a Blast Crystal Potion or a Siphon Soul or Shadow Bolt? I mean, just, that's terrifying.
Void Crusher. Ooh, scary.
How much damage is this? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. So they're 3 off lethal right now.
You haven't seen Emperor from your opponent, so you know you're out of combo range. Most they can do on 10 mana is 12 with Leroy Faceless. For 6, they can do 10. Drax is relatively safe. Penn State's going to take it a little bit slower. Finja's done great work so far without ever even killing anything.
Yeah, it's just been a giant disruption effect. At 9, do they have lethal here next turn through no taunt? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so they're representing lethal in this spot as well. So the Shambler here, definitely a big one.
There's no saps in this aggro rogue.
Ooh, that's a cold blood. Bluegill cold blood looks pretty good to me.
We get the 2 war leaders off the Finja.
Oh, but do you maybe eviscerate cold blood and keep the bluegill around to attack? That's interesting. So if they use eviscerate on the faceless shambler here, it goes into 4 health. They cold blood the Finja, move in. They get 2 war leaders on the board. The bluegill moves to a 6/4. The war leaders are 5/4s. They get to push for 6 damage. Wait, is that? No, it's never lethal because they don't have the damage to push through in that instance. But that looks like a strong setup to me. Then you have Jiraxis on the next turn to try to deliver that last 3 points of damage. You know, you set Sherbrooke to 3.
Hope your opponent doesn't have Reno.
Set Sherbrooke to 3 and force them to handle the board pressure. Yeah, I mean, right now it's a pray there's no Reno. Pray there's no just like big heal and a taunt, something like that. I think they're going for it.
Really nice play from Penn State so far.
This is where Finley shows up.
The Finch is 6. You don't want that 6. All right, does Sherbrooke get it?
Ooh, they get a heal though. Heal, taunt, Shadow Flame. They have enough mana for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to crack for 8.
Penn State can't deal 5 through a taunt.
Maybe they want to keep their 8 power around and attack one of the war leaders in Shadow Flame, the Earthen Ring. That's a weird spot.
It's very strange. They keep the 8/3. Yeah, they want it. Maybe this gets in for 2 attacks now instead of 1.
Yeah, my one concern with this is that it doesn't set up lethal on the following turn. If they hit for 8, it'd be at 18. They would have 7 on board, and then they'd have 12 from hand with the Leroy and the Faceless Manipulator. That would have set up lethal. I think they just didn't account for the Faceless Manipulator being drawn.
And having 12 from hand.
It's really hard for Penn State to get through this, and honestly, the Jiraxis just being a dead card the whole time now is suddenly a huge liability. I mean, how do they win from here? I don't know if it's by playing Blood Mage, because...
Maybe you keep Blood Mage around, draw your second Eviscerate.
Yeah, I mean, because now there's no reach. There's no way they're dealing 5 damage from this spot.
Yeah, it might have been hold on to Blood Mage and hope that you draw Eviscerate off the top.
Aaron Such could shape this game. I wonder if after the Twisting Nether, they should have slammed Jiraxis.
After the Nether, they went with the Finja back on board. Jiraxis could have gotten in for 3 that turn. Eventually, Finja gets down. That's tough.
It doesn't really matter that much after that point. Yeah, I mean, this is just game. Sherbrooke would need Azure Drake into Eviscerate, and both Azure Drakes are now gone. Don't tell me that's Eviscerate. Okay.
It's backstab. Okay.
It's like, oh,
well,
no.
I mean, they've got Phantom Knives. They still could have drawn the Eviscerate.
Yeah, they would be one card deeper, though. The draw would have been backstab in this instance had they held on to the Blood Mage.
Yeah.
Just nothing in Rogue
Yeah, you're right. They wouldn't have had that extra draw.
Yeah, just nothing deals 5 direct damage. So Penn State just going to try to live on board. And even that's looking pretty daunting.
Nope.
Well, they live on board, but they don't live through hand.
No.
So 2-1 lead now for Sherbrooke.
That Reno Warlock just dancing on the edge the entire time and finally able to set up one big taunt. Penn State can't get through it. They cannot close out this game.
No Kazakus.
The Reno-less Warlock.
That's a big win when you win without those. Today's a day of rare sights. Druid winning a game against an aggro deck. Reno not drawing its major payoff cards and getting there anyway.
We saw a strictly mid-range Warlock deck in the Asia-Pacific playoffs. I believe it was Rajam who topped out at second-rate Bruiser. And
mid-range
Warlock. Also mid-range Paladin. Turns out, if you don't put Reno in your deck, you can't ever not draw Reno. So, you know, sometimes it works out.
Or you can always not draw
Can't always
Reno.
not draw Reno. Can't ever fail to draw Reno when you need it because you don't have it. Funny how that one works out.
I don't even know how that... Does that mean that you can always, all the time, draw Reno?
No. It means that you can always never draw Reno.
I'm just confused.
Well, we do have a tweet to bring up, so think about that one.
It makes sense if you don't think about it.
We'll see. So do so many things. But Aaron90495 wants us to think about what's your favorite legendary entrance animation? Hashtag Tespa.
The favorite animation for it, honestly, Wicker Flame Burn Bristle has just been like one of my favorite.
I'm on fire.
It's just one of my favorite like cards and like the way that he feels and acts and stuff. It's not really like an exciting card. It's kind of just paladin feeling, but
it's kind of underwhelming. But
it's got a great personality.
Cool dude. I
love that one.
I love Golden Monkey. I think when the monkey comes out, it starts screaming, and your entire hand changes.
It's definitely a cool one.
It's just great.
King Crush too. I mean, you can never forget King Crush.
King Crush is nice.
I remember when they updated all the animations actually because they used to just like slam into play.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's cool. And then Ragnaros, they gave it like the volcano entrance.
Aviana as well now comes flying in.
Yeah, that was really cool. I love.
They made some good changes. They made some really nice ones. Well, if you have any questions you want to ask us, let us know who you're rooting for in this tournament. Tweet at Team Tespa. Go on Facebook /Team Tespa. And if your tweet gets chosen to be featured on stream, then you do receive the $1 on Flame card back. It's pretty sweet.
Woo!
It's pretty free.
Free stuff. Who doesn't like free stuff?
Heathens.
I know that you take those free. You take like 4 free samples.
You at Halloween sometimes, you get one costume, you go around the street, put on another costume, go around again. It's just what childhood is about.
I've done that.
Yeah. I can't say that I ever have, but the same brother that broke my bike by trying to play card games on it has done it many times.
Hammering your brother. You're just jealous.
So jealous. Yes. Absolutely.
Rogue and Shaman left for Penn State at this point. And the Aggro Rogue versus Shaman matchup, I don't know about this one. That one feels really tough for Rogue. Oh, I
don't know what you said. Snowman shirt, put it back up.
I read like we fight.
I mean, usually I'm a pretty quick reader, but I just did not have my eyes on that one.
I'm
unprepared.
Really slow reader.
We are not prepared. Illidan would be so mad at us.
Well, I think it'd be mad if you Jungle Panther.
It's Curator Rogue. Was Dwayna playing a Curator package?
That's a good question.
I have no idea.
Now the thing about it is, I actually played a lot of Jungle Panther, believe it or not.
I believe it. I certainly believe it.
When I used to practice a lot with Chalky and Blackout in like I think it was like early 2015, and we put this card in Face Hunter and we just called him Ninja Huffer because he was just a 4/2 that just always got in. Like he always got to attack. Like no one could ever kill it. It just had stealth.
Oh my God, it's the neutral Huffer.
Ninja Huffer is what it is. And honestly, in control matchups, it was really good. The problem was in any aggressive matchup, you're just like, why do I have this 3-mana 4/2 stealth?
None of that story surprises me at all.
It was reasonable. Everyone played control.
This is coming from the guy who went in Face Hunter, went Doomsayer on 2, Wolf Rider on 3.
That's a good play
and you
style.
talk about it frequently. I've heard that story like 3 times.
Yikes. Ancestral Healing. is not good.
Hey, gives a minion taunt.
Their random effects so far have not really produced the most exciting stuff for them. It's been pretty poor. And that Maelstrom Portal. that Goldshire Footman guy. That Goldshire Footman guy on Twitter's having a heyday right now.
Oh, that's funny. That and the Annoyotron Twitter account. Oh, those are good.
Yeah, so for this matchup, Sherbrooke, they've pretty much done their job right now, which is they got rid of the little bit of early pressure that chips away at their life total. And this is why it's a bad matchup for Penn State, is their minions in the early game are not resilient. They're very much bent on being reckless and setting up for bigger turns later on. At this stage, Sherbrooke is going to have so much time to set up, and Lightning Storm operates very well against this deck typically. They have Blood Mage to go with it. They're already getting taunts on board. They have Jinyu Water Speaker to start building board presence and saving off life total. Just everything just matches up really poorly for Penn State.
The way you shut down Ninja Huffer is with Lightning Storm.
It's true.
Can't attack out of stealth if you're already dead. But they are gonna try.
It's bringing back memories. Now, that being said, Jinyu looks really poor here, so that's something else to consider about that card. Is if you're at 30, is this a card you really want to play that much?
Well, 3/6 body is still not terrible. It does overload you on the following turn. Something to think about.
Blood Mage Fan looking pretty good.
It's nice. Then you can Ancestral Healing your Blood Mage.
Could also just
hold
coin the
on to
Finja,
that
though.
Panther.
They could coin the Finja, or
That's true.
they could Blood Mage Fan. The rest of their plays look a little bit awkward. I could see Dagger up and the Sousy deckhand, but it feels a tad weak to me.
They coin Finja. Blood Mage Lightning Storm. 50%. But it's so tempting.
I like 50%. Those are usually the ones I go for, because when your opponent has to react to it, the step number one is they have to choose to make that play. They have to choose to take that risk. And then step number two is they have to succeed that. So a lot of times when you're in those situations where your opponent would have a 50-50 to take care of something, it succeeds more than that because your opponent isn't playing that play every single time. So
Yeah, not to mention in 6 cards, they need to have either natural spell damage and Lightning Storm, or they need to roll the totem.
yeah, you need to think about how disastrous it could be for you, but yeah, that Flame Tongue can't be disastrous for Penn State right now. I like the push. And once again, problem with Lightning Storm showing through in this spot. It's gonna forego totems at some point.
Finja may be able to come down safely next turn, and because the Flame Tongue's left up, that's going to always be a target.
Yeah, that's a good reason to leave up Flame Tongue actually in this spot, is the Finja. God, I love that card. It changes the scope of the game. How often do you intentionally not kill a minion?
It's so bizarre. I don't think anybody saw Finja coming. Well, certainly not in anything other than Anyfin Paladin.
Purple
it made a
did.
lot of sense in Anyfin Paladin. Okay, well, purple's a great deck builder.
He played that card in everything. I think he's actually put the Finja package in every single deck
class
at some point, yeah.
It's found a lot of success in, Druid, Warrior, Rogue, Paladin.
Just a good card.
The Finja 5. Put him in anywhere.
Sounds like a weird indie band.
I think that's the intention, yeah. Still waiting for the merchandise to come out. T-shirts and hats.
Well, there's no way to stop this Finja this turn. So how do they set up strongest against it is the next question.
That's the most they can do.
Ooh, War Leader getting drawn is really interesting. Wow, they have a lot of reach potential.
That actually might change this turn.
I mentioned that typically it's a really reckless deck, but that's, Finja is really changing the scope of that. Suddenly they have this wonderful mid-range plan.
Oh. That's fantastic.
It looks pretty good, honestly. And they can heal the Finja to full here too, like, or they could block with the Ancestral Healing on the attacks. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on this game. And Penn State's life total definitely is a resource at this point. They're under almost no pressure, and the reach from Sherbrooke is very low. So, you know, the idea of taking 7 damage is not completely ridiculous.
You've seen one Lightning Storm, you've seen one Maelstrom Portal. Penn State can really prioritize their board here, expecting not to see more board clear.
I think you heal up the Finja.
Yeah,
Indeed.
you do.
At this point, there's only 1 Murloc left that it can fetch. Oh no, there's 0 Murlocs now. That's 2. No, there's 1
No,
more
there's
leader.
one
One
more
more leader, yeah. They're trying to roll a Spell Power Totem. Don't get it. So Finja's sticking around again.
That's both storms gone from Sherbrooke. They're overloaded again on the following turn.
Whoa. They got a lot of gas.
Curator's not going to pull any Murlocs. What are the odds that there's 2 Panthers in this deck? You think you go full Panther?
Low. Very low. But they're fighting a value game. That's the thing that's most interesting to me, is that they've turned this weird deck that normally is kind of clunky into
They've got a lot of resources.
this value machine. And this is an interesting interaction right here. So Finja goes to 0 health, but its activation happens before the game state checks. So Murloc War Leader gets pulled from the deck guaranteed for them. Finja goes to 2 health, takes the 1 damage, back at 1 and lives.
Now I'm with you. I like Finja. I hate that interaction.
I love it.
That's so dumb. It's like if you go down to 0 health, you can't armor up and not be dead.
I will admit it is a little bit weird, the idea that
It's
he
just very
kills a minion, but he
counterintuitive.
doesn't die in the combat himself.
Now Penn State can just load up. Now they get King's Blood Toxin off of Zero. Means they get to draw another card from that.
Yeah, and at this stage, if they kill the War Leader, that 1 damage is effectively healed on Finja too, so he would stick around if they didn't Maelstrom Portal as well. Ah, this is a weak turn. You know, they're at a comfortable life total, but that's not what's mattering right now. It's that they're starting to run low on resources that function strong in this stage.
One kill.
And Penn State, they're about to get some immense value.
And every minion that Sherbrooke removes from now on, it's going to have to be single target removal or minion-based combat. They have no more AoE.
Wow.
Man, you can curate or shadow step curator in some, not in this game, obviously, because that would make 0 sense. You have no resources left. But in some cases, that might be pretty cool.
If you just haven't really drawn that much gas and you just need cards.
You can get 2 Drakes,
Yeah.
2 Murlocs.
More and more as the metagame's developed, we've been seeing decks find ways to get... Oh my gosh.
I mean, the first one was okay.
What are the odds? How many Shaman cards are there?
A lot.
There's
There's a lot of Shaman cards.
If one of you guys out there is likes to do a little bit of that counting and mathematics, what are the odds of getting
The same card twice.
in Shaman?
Choose soon.
My guess is very low.
Is that the Shadow Step one?
Yeah,
Return a
Blood
minion,
Thistle.
cost 2 less. Yeah, they're going to taunt up the Azure Drake, which I'm not sure I'm in agreement with, because this is like the prime Jade Lightning target anyway. I don't know, maybe they want to make it the prime Jade Lightning target. Maybe just want to keep the Shaku around. Wow, this is weird. And they're at 14 too. That's the other weird thing here too. Is most of the damage they've taken has been intentional.
Think about the reach they have now. Cold Blood, Shadow Step, Blood Thistle Toxin, which is essentially second Shadow Step. If they pick up a charge minion or Leroy, that's a lot of damage. Second Cold Blood. Okay, wait.
17, 19.
So that's 4, 8, 11, 13, 14, 18.
We would need 8 mana.
SI7 agent can be 4. Do they have the mana?
Okay, so you have 5 on board right now. Opponent's at 17. Let's say you drop the Shadow Step on your Murloc War Leader. So you don't deal 5 immediately. You take 3 off the War Leader, drop to 19. Shadow Step to War Leader, double Cold Blood on Shaku, that's 10. So then that's 9 more damage you have to output. You get 4 from Eviscerate, and then you have 5 mana left over. So that's SI7 Agent, Fade Leaf Toxin, SI7 Agent, attack with Dagger. That looks like lethal to me. They're going to get their free card first and double check. And I think this ends up working out the same because the damage, they just get 2 activations of SI7 Agent instead of an extra combat from Cold Blood. So the math works out the same.
This guy's toast.
Wow. A lot of extra cards let you do some weird stuff.
Yes, they certainly do.
Oh, do they have time? I think they got it off in time, but the way his facial reaction looks... Oh, he's 1 mana short.
They're 1 mana short.
So should he have Shadow Step first? Would that have made any difference at all?
He double cold... What was the very first thing he did? He attacked with Shaku, went double Cold Blood on the War Leader. He did not combo the first Cold Blood, did he? No, he didn't. That was the problem. The extra 2 damage would have come from the double combo.
I thought he had the mana for it.
Shadow Steps to be on the SI7 agent.
The Fade Leaf
yeah, and you had no way to combo the first Cold Blood. So they were 2 damage off, but their mind is blown. It doesn't even matter because Sherbrooke did not have the damage to close out that game. Penn State played a very strange game of aggro rogue. It didn't look very aggressive at all, but they got there.
That was one of the weirder games I've seen in a while. And
yeah.
This is a fairly new deck that has been creeping into the metagame. So I don't have like a ton of experience with this. All I've really done is I've watched it play a couple times. I haven't been able to really roll with it myself in a lot of situations and figure out what your game plans are. And I certainly haven't seen Jungle Panther find its way into the deck. But it makes some sense with the Curator because you're just trying to get cards that deal extra damage. That's one of the only beasts in the game for Rogue
that is sort of guaranteed to do damage.
Right. I mean, a lot of times it can be a Cold Blood target. You're forcing AoE from your opponent way earlier than that. You're just hoping you have the time is really the big factor to it. But that at the end there, you know, the miscount, that could have cost them a lot on the miscount. I mean, they would die to Bloodlust in that spot.
That was a lot to think about. And ultimately, it did end up being that they were 1 mana off or 2 damage because they didn't have a way to combo the first Cold Blood. It was very close. But fortunately for them, Sherbrooke did not have the damage in response. And now we're going to be going to game number 5. It's going to be a Shaman Mirror.
Yeah, and I think we've seen mid-range Jade from both teams at this point. So a lot of this matchup simply boils down to those early starts and who's dictating the tempo. If one player can secure the board and then get a Mana Tide totem down, that's a lot of extra cards they threaten. And we've seen that situation crop up multiple times yesterday, a player getting multiple priority threats.
You get Totem Golem and Mana Tide. What do you move first?
Your opponent want to take a lot of damage, or do they want to let you draw a lot of cards? That's a tough decision to make. We've been seeing players tend to let the card draw happen. And that has...
Then they end up just taking the damage down the line.
There's been this 0 success rate so far on not killing the Mana Tide in those kinds of situations. We did see a team try to just build board tension against it as well and rely on that. And then Hex offset it. It was a giant punish at that point.
Yeah.
So when Hex turns into a payoff card rather than just a removal spell, that's a very big deal in a game like that. It just Mana Tide, I think it drew like 5-6 cards that game.
But ultimately, you need to have those threats to go alongside the Mana Tide. Mana Tide, while it represents a lot of value on its own, Tunnel Trog, Totem Golem are still going to be the way that you win this early game. So a combination of those cards may be able to run away with it.
And that's one of the reasons why Shaman has just been such a strong class, is that there's a lot of synergy with its cards. And the synergy is not difficult to assemble. It's usually have a thing on board to protect another card. So Flame Tongue, snowballing board positions, Mana Tide Totem drawing lots of extra cards, or just simply being able to tempo swing with Thing from below and have that protect all the little guys who have been battling in combat and living at that point. Everything works really well together. It's just a matter of if they have time to get those pieces rolling. That's where the overload management comes in.
Find yourself between a rock and a hard place in a lot of cases. This is going to be game number 5.
Yeah, and Devolve continues to be teched into a lot of these builds. And honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with Finja kind of creeping into the metagame so much. You know, it's a card that you don't really have a ton of ways to interact with.
Yeah, I know you're not the biggest fan of Devolve. I still think it is decent. It's certainly situational. In a lot of cases, it can be very good. In a lot of cases, you need a second AoE spell alongside it to really remove the board. But it's not terrible. I think one copy of it, one day you're going to be really, really desperate. You're going to need something, and Devolve is going to be there for you.
It definitely
going to make a fan out of you.
You know, the counterplay to Finja is limited to, in terms of really strong, like, sort of direct answers. It's pretty limited. You know, you're looking at, like, Deadly Shot on empty board, Flare. Nobody plays Hunter right now because it's such a poor class, so those don't make sense. But then you have like Daring Investigator, which like reveals just opponent's stealth minions. It's like a 5-minute 4/6.
Yeah.
You have Kodo. Like Stampeding Kodo could be a great answer to Finja.
Kodo, I think, should be an auto include in a lot of Reno decks right now. It makes so much sense in this meta.
But Devolve is certainly one of them. And Devolve, I think, has a range of uses than the neutral options you have. So I see why it's in there. I'm just personally not a big fan. It's because it requires that second card. Oftentimes you devolve your opponent's board, it's still just strong. Who knew 5 minions on the opposing side was just good?
But if you devolve your opponent's 1-drop into a 0-drop, Murloc Tinyfin, half the time, will be there. And then if you have Hungry Crab to follow it up, well, that's a 1-mana 3/4.
I do think it's funny that of the devolve games we've seen in the Collegiate Series, that the one with Hungry Crab is the one that won. Like, we've been seeing it lose.
The one where the devolve did absolutely nothing. And certainly did not need to be there, was the game that won.
Interesting point you brought up. When Devolve did nothing, they still won because they were winning.
So maybe. Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem.
That's
Good
just
cards. I think also that deck had Flame Wreath Faceless in it. It was sort of an interesting hybrid.
Big deal. I'm using anecdotal evidence to prove my point.
Yeah.
I have no significant data to back up my claims.
We have one situation and it may have worked out, but Hey, look, devolve. Totem Golem becomes a 1-drop.
Just turns into Flame Imp. You're like, oh.
Shoot.
Jade Claw is definitely the answer here in this spot. So both teams off to pretty strong starts here. Penn State, Tunnel Trog, and a Totem Golem. But they had coins, so they didn't have the attacker's initiative. Sherbrooke gets to land Totem Golem, eat the Trog, and then drop Spirit Claws. So this is looking like it's a fairly even start for both teams. I think Penn State's going to come out of this one with maybe a 3-1 Totem Golem. But for the most part, the resources are fairly even. So we're going to start seeing that scaling take place, where if Sherbrooke can land Bran with a big Jade, that could be a big difference. You know, Devolve's pretty weak against Jade cards. Penn State, if they're going to win this game, a lot of it's going to have to do, I think, with just making the most of their resources right now. They have no Jade stuff to play with. They do have Coin Azure Drake, though. Oh, that's not next turn. They're overloaded. Excuse me.
Yep, they're working with 3 mana next turn, max of 4 with the coin. Whew.
I don't know about that Bran. In this
throw
matchup,
it out to the slaughter.
Yeah, the thing about it is, in this matchup, you have to think about the differences between Aggro Shaman and Mid-Range Shaman. Mid-Range Shaman doesn't really pressure you nearly as much, and it's hard for them to punish the slower play than it is for Aggro Shaman. So, like, playing the Bran here is just a big sacrifice for a lot of times, where hero power, that pretty much acts as armor up.
If you are equal in the early game, which so far it's looking like it's going to be about similar, that Bran is going to help you a lot in the late game, and they just threw it out to die.
I don't know about that. I think that Totem, it kind of accomplishes the same thing here. You save 3 life. Well, Penn State almost certainly is going to kill your Totem.
I don't know, man. That's sacrificing a lot of value in the late game.
It's very liberal use of resources, that's for sure.
Especially such a valuable resource as Bran.
Now, granted, it's pretty hard to set that up, but they have Hex, they got Lightning Storm, they got Jade Lightning. I don't see the rush.
I'm wondering if they were directly comparing Bran and Hex that turn. If they were thinking about hexing the Golem Maybe they value that higher than Brand. It's a little bit less situational.
That's why I would just hero powered.
Save them both.
Oh, it was Penn State just like hit you in the face with Totem Golem and not kill totems. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, if you hero power, you don't get a guaranteed kill on the Totem Golem. With Brand, then they can run the Jade Claws in, then Jade Lightning maybe takes out Penn State's next threat.
and that's what they're looking at, I think, is landing Jade Lightning on an Azure Drake. Oh, and then this punish happens. Whoa. Doesn't even land on the Totem Golem.
Mighty Wrath of Air Totem.
Doesn't even land on the Totem Golem. And this is another reason to totem up too. Sherbrooke has Think from Below in the deck. I think that they played this game a bit too fast, and you're gonna see that cost really come into effect very soon.
Well, Jade Lightning gone now. Penn State must feel a lot safer playing this Azure Drake.
The Azure Drake too.
That is a Yeti with spell damage.
That's good.
And it drew you a card. Peace out, Azure Drake. You're going to the Hall of Fame.
The Thing from Below just looks terrifying to play right now because your opponent has spell damage in play. Jade Lightning's gonna kill it directly. This is tough.
Lightning Bolt would kill it directly.
I mean, it's really tough to look at this game and think about it. You know, playing the Brand could have potentially cost them so much. I mean, that being said, say they played it slower. Penn State would have had a more free turn. Maybe they developed stronger. There's some cost to saving Brand as well. There's no doubt about it. But when the cards are typically fairly even matched in this matchup, you have to find a way to break that standstill. Is that board presence or is that card value?
Well, certainly Sherbrooke would have been able to remove the Golem had the Wrath of Air Totem not been there. That's a little unfortunate for them. And then Jade Lightning would have likely run into the Azure Drake.
Their conclusion is that Lightning Storm is a card they cannot fear right now because they're losing board presence if they don't play strong enough. And fortunately for them, Penn State doesn't have it. So Sherbrooke going to get a big payoff from going wide on the board here. If Penn State tries to match that, they have their own Lightning Storm.
And unfortunately, this is just another one of those instances where Devolve isn't that good.
You don't say?
I'm trying to put a positive spin on this card, Admirable. You're not helping.
It's just not good.
You're not helping me out
It's
here,
just not
man.
a good card.
We've seen like
Look.
every mid-range Jade Shaman has had one copy of Devolve in it.
And that's
Some have had two.
That's the thing about it is inherently the nature of tech cards is that they're fairly bad cards. The thing about it is when they pay off massively. That's the purpose of a
No,
tech
that's
card.
not bad. That's situational. It's alternative wording. It's very different.
Thankfully, it doesn't actually mean they're facts when you just put the word alternative in front of it.
Yes.
So 7 damage cracking across the board for Penn State, and suddenly they are in heaps of trouble. Sherbrooke with Hex going to be able to play a strong tempo game. That was a necessary pickup. They needed something to really start swinging the board presence. 2 Thing from Below is coming down soon, though.
But if Penn State can remove both of those, they're going to have more cards.
Wow, that
More
Jade
Jade
Lightning
threat.
That was a sick draw.
That was nice.
That was a shutdown. I'll tell you what, the mid-range Shaman matchups certainly make for some strong entertainment. These are some nail-biter games. There's a lot of merit to killing the 3/3 here as well. Now Penn State free to kill Thing from Below if they want to. Will cost them a lot of life. But frankly, that's something that Shaman's very good at, is recovering from a low life total. A lot of taunts in the deck, a lot of strong removal options. If you try to all-in them and don't take care of the board well enough, they get those big swing turns. Lightning Storms, Maelstrom Portals, Jade Lightnings, that sort of stuff.
You need to find value from your heals somewhere. And pretty much every mid-range Shaman is running 2 copies of Jinyu. You can afford to use your life as a resource.
This left Sherbrooke with very little counterplay. You know, now they're losing the board initiative and looking to make that up later with the second Lightning Storm they just drew. You know, their initial game plan was hex and push through, but
Making up board state with the Lightning Storm is going to be even harder going on as the Golems get bigger.
not only that, but the cards are just like trading really evenly. It's another problem to think about. It's a weird game. Yeah, it's looking good to me.
It's probably the best it's going to get. Ooh. Low rolls on both.
Not the worst, though. I mean, it ends up in this about the same situation. They're going to use their own life total to clear out the Jade Chieftain, land the 5-5, and put the test to Penn State now. Even though Thing from Below cost so little mana that turn, it's still a 6-cost minion, so Devolve will turn it into a 5.
Which, in a couple of cases, is just going to be better stats. 5 mana, 5/6s. The brand pickup means that Penn State's going to be able to heal for 12 and the Jinyu if they want it.
Yeah, the problem is the Jade Spirit is at 4 as well, so it go into 3 and buffs it sometimes. Totems don't have any power right now. You move them down to 0, suddenly they have power.
Frickin' Devolve.
It's a tough card to use without coupling it with something else.
It's really good against a Sylvanas. Or a Tyrion. Or Murlocs. Or Gadgets and Auctioneer. Shaman doesn't have any of those, but it's pretty good.
Penn State looking at taking this a lot slower too. So Hex, they're getting the feeling that Sherbrooke is running low on cards, but then they actually play the Jinyu, and it doesn't make the most sense to me anymore. So I was gonna say like Feral Spirit was looking pretty good on that turn, just to try to protect themselves, then roll into the Bran and Jinyu Water Speaker.
Now they are going to have to rely on drawing a Jade card to make that brand valuable, but they also need removal to get rid of the 10 power that Sherbrooke just put on the board.
Maybe have to rely on Devolve to get the job done here.
So Chieftain goes to a 6-drop, the Golem goes to 4.
Oh, that's a bad time to draw a tech card.
I don't know, it seemed like Penn State was in the driver's seat for part of this game, but Sherbrooke might just have enough power to be able to close it out.
The second Lightning Storm definitely helped, and picking up the second Jade Chieftain helped a lot too. The end game cards are what's going to dictate a lot of this, and Penn State's been drawing tech card.
Yeah, I mean, you take out the pirate package and you are able to fit in some of those tech cards. They're very situational. They're not going to be great in a lot of places, and this is one of them. Pirates wouldn't have been much better, but what do you really do?
It's looking rough. Load the board. I mean, the benefit is they've seen 2 Lightning Storms, so they don't have to really worry about board clear that much. Spell damage doesn't mean a ton.
Yeah, Penn State can pick up their Lightning Storm. Sherbrooke freaks out when they see that Aya coming off the Chieftain. That'll death rattle into a 6/6.
That's a disaster.
My goodness.
That's a lot of value.
This is where Penn State needs second Devolve.
They actually added power to the board with that Devolve.
Yes, there was 12 on board. Now there's 15.
And Sherbrooke just free to kind of do this however they want. Like, what threat are they under at this point? Oh,
and they get
the
a
extra
1/1
from the Silver Hand region.
Reporting for duty.
Okay.
Overloaded.
Oh, no. Oh, that's horrible.
And that's game. Sherbrooke. The Devolve didn't work. And Sherbrooke going to take it 3-2. Our first match of the night going the distance.
Well, I am not surprised. At least not after yesterday, where all of our games, all of our matches went to 5. In a lot of cases, Game 5 was a bit of a blowout yesterday. This one was very close, but Sherbrooke able to take it 3-2 in the mid-range Shaman Mirror.
And they secure themselves that playoff spot at this point. The 5th match win for them this season. 5-1 record after 6 weeks of play, and that's got to be a good feeling. All the teams competing to try to make it to that playoff spot finally get the job done.
That's what this is all about. You got 7 weeks of Swiss. You need to win 5 of those weeks to make it to the playoffs. And from there, well, then you're on a bit more of a level playing field. So now that they've gotten that 5th win, they can try to better predict the meta going into the regional playoffs. They can use next week to try to set themselves up for success. They're in a great spot now. That's fantastic for them.
They cannot be kicked out in any fashion now.
No, they cannot.
All 5 and 2 teams make it. So now for Penn State, next week's their last chance. 4-2 record at this point. It's do or die time for them. So they still have that second chance, but that's a big sweat. It's tough to lose this one. But that's the nature of competition. Is you got to have those rewards. You got to have those try agains.
You know what? 4-2 is 4-2 still really good. They've got one more chance. They can make it count. They can also earn their way into the regional playoffs, which is the next stage of the tournament. They looked pretty good today. There may have been a couple of things that they could have done differently, but their lineup was reasonable. The Rogue was a little bit odd, but it certainly got a win. So I think they can still put themselves in a good position. Certainly they'll have more time to prepare for next week now, having had 2 weeks in this balanced, changed meta.
The thing I really liked is the pace of their play. They weren't overcommitting to board positions. They were making strong hand reads. In that particular game, it just didn't pan out.
That's not their fault.
Adding the Acidic Swamp, who's having the devolve in there, they just drew them at the poor times. And those cards, I think they can be necessary if you expect Finja to really show up. That's a card you need to shut down. I mean, look what it did in the Warlock game from a disruption standpoint. So in that situation, they drew the low-end cards, and University of Sherbrooke drew their high-end cards. That will decide a game if the early stages are even. So overall, I like their pace of play, and I'm liking their chances for next week.
I mean, and maybe you predicted you'd see more Finja, but now in the last 2 weeks, it's been a lot more Druid, a lot more Dragon Priest, not a lot of any Fin Paladin, not a lot of any Fin Water Warrior. Of course, we saw the Finja Rogue today. It's the first time we've seen that, though, over the last 2 weeks. So
I will say
they'll have a better read for next week.
Devolve certainly works well against Dragon Priest. If that's another popular choice, they buff health on the minions, then you just strip that right away. I mean, the whole benefit of Priest is playing undercosted, overstatted cards at the cost of having a lot of options in your deck. So when they land Wormrest Agent and then they put Cabal Talon Priest on it, now you're shifting those to a random 1-drop and a random 2-drop. That's a big swing from 11 health on your opponent's side. So I don't mind Devolve in that spot. It's just that's the nature of that tech card. It's difficult to have a big payoff unless it's the right situation.
Well, we have an interview ready with our winners. It is the University of Sherbrooke. Congratulations, guys. Very well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. All right, so you have earned your 5th win now in this tournament series. You are 5-1, which means you are through to the next stage of the tournament. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels good. Oh, yeah. Like I said in the first time we were streamed, we made it in the collegial training ground, so we were really hoping we could make it in this league too. So we're really glad we made it. It wasn't easy, but we did it. I think my heart almost break many times.
Yeah, there were some tough moments. That Penn State's Rogue deck certainly had some really, really clutch draws there from Swashbuckler and Shaku. It was a really fascinating game, but you ended up coming out on top in the Shaman Mirror, so very well done. Tell us a little bit, how did you guys come together and how did you form your team?
That was Martin made a post on Facebook. We're all members of the same Facebook page of Quebec Hearthstone, the hub Hearthstone Quebec, and we met each other there, and we played in the.
So we're Hearthstone friends. we met for the tournament, and now we're.
Yeah, so I was playing for a professional team in Quebec, and I was trying to make a team for Tespa. So I just posted on the Facebook Hearthstone page to ask if people want to play with me for this league.
It seems like it worked out really well. Coming together, maybe making some friends and playing some Hearthstone and certainly succeeding now that you guys are through to the next stage of the tournament. So you've got that Facebook group. What is Hearthstone really like at Sherbrooke? Is there a big scene or is it kind of just a Facebook group and you guys?
Well, not really. Sherbrooke, not really. It's like it's really a student town. Everybody is going to the university, and it's not much people playing Hearthstone there. But
in Quebec, I think there's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's mostly a Quebec scene. So people from Montreal and Quebec have a lot of tournaments, but in Sherbrooke, there's not much. But we just meet in Quebec or Montreal for tournaments and stuff like that.
Sounds like you got some work to do. Build a nice, strong community of teams playing there.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. I want to get your thoughts on the Druid game. You guys celebrated super hard after you won that one, and rightfully so. It's a tough matchup. Have you found that Druid is really sitting well in this metagame now that Small Time Buccaneer has moved down to 1 health?
Well, it's clearly stronger because of swipe and Buccaneers having 1 life. So you can easily swipe on turn 2 or 3 or 4 and clear their whole board. I think the only problem is the captain who buffs the other pirates, because then you cannot swipe their minions. But other than that, Druid is much more stronger against slow decks, so obviously it's pretty good.
Yeah, but we have to say we really had some good draws in this game.
The turn 6 top deck taunt was, I think, what made us win the game.
And it was feeling special to not attack 2 turns in a row, but we were afraid of the Mortal Strike. Them attack on our 5-10 and going to 12 to Mortal Strike with the Hunter Rose power. So it was some clever mathematics, I would say.
Yeah, we were really afraid of Mortal Strike, so we didn't want to bring them at 17, because then they could just hit the Enchant of War and get down to 12. So.
Yeah, we noticed that they did have it in hand, so you guys successfully played around it really very well. So fantastic job. So there is 1 more week of Swiss play. You are through to the next round, so whatever happens next week, you will still go through. Are you going to maybe goof off, bring some fun decks next week, or are you still going to try and do your best?
Maybe playing some Hunter and Paladin.
Or Finja. Finja's pretty good.
Yeah, the meta evolves around Finja right now, so we're probably just going to try to practice and see what you can do with Finja decks or how to counter Finja decks better. But I think we're going to still play seriously, even though we're already in.
That's the main reason why we banned the Rogue, because we had the Finja deck, but we didn't have much time to practice it, so we're not used to it. We're not so used to it, so we banned it because we're more comfortable with the 3 others.
Yeah.
Well, maybe by next week you'll be able to bring it and feel really confident. So congratulations, guys. Is there anybody that you maybe want to give a shout out to, or just anything else you want to say?
I want to say a shout out to That's It Gaming. You can go on that'sitgaming.com to see our teams. I know we have a Rocket League teams that really high in the scene right now. Also, shout out to everyone from Quebec. I'm not sure if other Quebec teams made it in the.
There's maybe Poly Hearthstone. I don't know if they made it, but we're on the.
Yeah. So any Hearthstone player in Quebec, we have to encourage all the Hearthstone scene in Quebec.
Yeah, shout out to Duck Pound for making it to the Bahamas for the World Championship, and I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doc certainly had a great run in HCT. Well, congratulations, guys. You're doing Quebec proud, and I'm excited to see how the scene grows and how you succeed in the rest of this tournament.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, Doc Pone certainly did it. Now maybe Sherbrooke can too.
That area just has a lot of strong Hearthstone going on. If you look at their attendance at HCT, it was Monsanto, Cydonia, and Doc Pone. Cydonia and Monsanto,
he made it to their
Cydonia
championships.
won a championship. Monsanto,
top 8 at BlizzCon.
Yeah, exactly. And Monsanto was at a championship the previous year, and then Doc Pone made it to the finals of this one. All 3 players who are in attendance at that location have been to a Hearthstone Championship Tour championship at some point, and it's been like a year since it started. That's
100% championship representation coming out of Quebec. That's fantastic. It is certainly a very talented area, and we'll be seeing a lot more out of them, I'm sure. So congratulations to University of Sherbrooke for securing their spot in the regional stage of this tournament. Moving on, we have another tweet to bring up on stream, so let's see who this one comes to us from. It's from @ChunkLight. What are the best resources for becoming a better Hearthstone player? I would say it's other Hearthstone players. Twitch streams certainly are what helped me quite a bit in learning specific decks very early on. I don't know what helped you out.
I found a big one that is used as just like Hearthstone trackers for
Deck
your
Tracker's
games.
great.
Being able to look at what decks you're succeeding with and what decks you're struggling with can give you not only a good idea of what decks are actually better, but perhaps where you're not playing up to speed. So say that Shaman is regarded as the best deck, but you continue to have a win rate lower than some of the other decks you play more often. Maybe that's a good time to actually look at your Shaman, slow down your play, don't just try to attack your opponent as quickly as possible. Really think about how your tools are working together and how you can use them against your opponent in the best way. I found that when I use Tracker, it helps me see where my weaknesses are way sooner than it would if I just played.
Yeah, it's a resource I held off on using for quite a while because I just gotten so used to tracking my cards in my head, remembering what I'd already played and what I had left. But the deck tracker giving you statistics for your matchups and your overall percentage of how well you've done in any sitting or in any season is very, very useful. So thank you so much for your tweet. If you have any questions that you want to ask us, tweet at Team Tespa, go on Facebook /Team Tespa. And if your question is chosen to be answered, you do earn yourself the Dalaran Flame card back. So there's some incentive if ever I've seen it.
I like free stuff.
Free stuff is great.
It's the best.
We have one team already securing their spot in the regional playoffs of this tournament. And up next, we're going to be seeing Carleton take on Michigan. And then Miami, Ohio will be up against Notre Dame to close out the day. We'll be right back with more Collegiate Hearthstone right after this.